So this meeting is just to discuss, basically to go over what LC6 and me went over a couple weeks ago for the questionnaire to send out to everybody. Kind of want to make sure that we're on the same page, and I wanted Laura Ruffy's experience and expertise dealing with nonprofits and stuff. See what you thought. I'm trying to bring it up for me to look at right now, but I'm having technical difficulties.
I have it in front of me. It's okay. If you want, I probably could share it, but it's also, as you said, it's there. Hi, folks. First of all, glad to be joining the team on this now that I have a new job and things have kind of settled down a little bit. Here I'm a few days in on the job.
Nice.
Yeah, so I appreciate the work you guys have already done in pulling stuff together. And I've literally had one or two times to just read through the 11-page document. First observations. Number one, I don't think that the foundation should take as its membership every Eterna player. I think Eterna Foundation, whatever we decide that should be, and I think you've come far in terms of getting things going on it, but I think it should be first of all, I think we should say it's it has different categories of membership. One category of membership is players, individuals, and I would say that we want to potentially, we could say that people have to make a nominal contribution, which would tend to keep out people who aren't interested in the governance structure at all. They just want to play. They don't want to say in the foundation. So maybe you say, you know, it's $10 a year or something like that. And also by creating a category that is individual members, you then can segment and control the issue of which I saw raised about, well, what about a pharmaceutical company trying to take control of the foundation? Well, first of all, you could say, number one, a pharmaceutical company couldn't by itself be a member in the same way because you'd have a different category of participants, as it were, or members. And then maybe what you say is, once the organization has been running for a while, we talk about how we partner or affiliate with other organizations, whether they're universities, whether they're for-profit entities, whether they're other foundations or research organizations or governments that want to participate with us. And we could say things like, oh, they can participate under these terms, they're not voting members, and whatever. So by having different categories of membership, it seems to me that we can set up in the original governance some of the control that I saw being asked about. And let me pause for a moment. So first of all, if I've misread stuff or I'm off base, let me know. And I also want to hear other people's ideas, not just monopolize the conversation to get started.
So I like the idea of different categories of membership. That's something we've been trying to figure out, like how we should have the membership be, and maybe having like that $10 a year dues that can kind of weed out some people, because we're trying to figure out how to weed out people,
Casual.
but yet make it accessible, you know. So I think that sounds like a good idea. What do you think, Elsie? Okay.
we had talked about also that like we want to make sure that we don't run into issues with bots either.
If
Along
they
those
if they've
lines.
got money, they can join. I'm not proud.
But that would go in the different like categories, like you have player individuals, and
Yeah.
bots wouldn't be allowed to have voting rights. But if you ran a bot, I mean, all my stuff now is bots, so I don't know. But
I mean, just as far as like people creating false accounts to.
Right. I mean,
Oh,
the whole thing by putting in a nominal fee. First of all, let's ignore false situations or bots for 30 seconds. I join, I want to play, I like the game, but I don't really care if I get a vote in moving things forward. Well, okay, fine. Then you're asking me for $10. I say no, I like the free version of Eterna. I don't want to join the foundation. Fine. And I actually, right now, if we just say individual human beings, that lets bots out the door. Although, as I say, if there comes a day that bots have money, we can always amend our bylaws then. Somebody,
mhm.
if we think that there's a, if Vinny, you know, starts having some money and wants to join. But I kind of doubt that bots are going to be a big problem. So yeah, I hear you. Go ahead, John.
I mean,
You're muted.
when I said bots, I was just referring to illegitimate,
Trolls.
yeah,
Trolls. Yeah. Yeah.
or mechanical Turks or whatever you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. None of those folks are going to have any money or pay in, and so it screens them out automatically. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to make sure that we don't run out of recording time. So I'm adding. I haven't done the charge
The
yet.
Zoom is kind
So
the Zoom is kind of
sorry.
laggy, so a little bit. Um, so okay, so if you like that approach, because I, I'm comparing it to like my internet connection is unstable. Wow, that's not very nice. Hmm. Let's see what else is running. Just Slack. Um. Hmm. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. It's. I wonder what's going on. Okay. Second item. This is at the 50,000-foot level. As I read through the document, there's a. I think we we almost need to set up the governance as like the first set of acts. That's what I want. It's almost like what you want to do is set up the governance, and as opposed to saying we're going to do these 5 things, or we want to do these, these 20 action steps or stuff like that. It seems to me step 1 becomes the governance, and then some of the short-term goals go to the organization itself. And once you have the governance, oh wow, okay, whatever. Um, sorry, shouldn't have read that. The it seemed like there was a lot of emphasis on figuring out the positions that would occur
Yeah,
in the foundation, and I almost think we need to step back 1 step, because we don't really know how many positions we need. Maybe we need 1 person, maybe we need 2 or 3, maybe one. Maybe people can fulfill multiple roles, maybe they can't, maybe some of them should be paid, maybe they shouldn't. There's a whole bunch of things that I think may evolve. You might find that early decisions aren't the same as later decisions. And I sort of think, that if you set up the right governance structure, that you then say, okay, the first position we want is an
You dropped out.
Hopefully she'll back up in a minute.
All right, looks like the Rossi dropped out. Yeah.
I assume we'll rejoin.
Yeah. I just upgraded the
Yeah, we got the
account
notification.
to, oh, okay. Yeah, because I just realized that the recording was only going to be 40 minutes and we're already 20 minutes in. So I'm like, let me buy that real quick. I just got a credit card, so I'm like, yeah.
Yep.
I'm taking linear algebra right now. Cool.
Yeah, I'm taking that this coming semester.
It's actually pretty easy. It's just a lot of it's not hand wavy like calculus. Here, do this thing. It works. Wait, but how does it work? Trust me. Linear algebra is like this, because of this. This is the step to do. And that kind of math is so easy for me. I can see it in a book and copy it. And I waited until the weekend to do it, but there's so many problems I don't have time to get them all done. It's more just like a tedious task right now, just cranking them out.
Welcome back.
Yeah, I was going to say your upgrade caused it to want to do an update. Well, indirectly, it did an update in the middle of the session, which kicked me off, and so I had to accept the upgraded. I'd accept the upgraded download before it would reconnect me there. So anyway, sorry.
Interesting. I wonder what's going to happen with this recording.
It should be fine.
Yeah, it'll be whatever. We can't boil the ocean here. So I don't know if we need a marketing director or don't need a marketing director. And it just seems to me if we separate the tasks a bit and say we want to get the structure up and we want one person to act as our thought leader and our executive to bring ideas back to us in terms of how much structure we need or what it'll take. And even if we say we love the proposal that's already on the table, and I express no opinion whether it's good or bad right now. As I say, at 50,000 feet, I'm trying to be one level above that. I think my screen is frozen again, or otherwise Jennifer's extremely still. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, it looks like your video dropped out, but I see you, or hear you rather.
I am pretty still, but I have a fan in my background.
And cannot hear him anymore. Now you're back.
Yeah, you want to use Google Hangouts maybe next time or this time?
I'm not sure that it would really be any better. When we use like Zoom, we use it for our for developer meetings and stuff like that, and we never have issues. So
you think it's me? Okay, great.
It might be.
Har. Okay. So I don't know what you heard last, but I was saying I sort of think that that our first action step is to get the structure together and get a person in the role, whether it's an acting executive director, just to say, okay, you've got a 6-month term or something, you either are or aren't being paid, and we want you to start getting things going for us and decide if we need more staff and what positions will exist. A lot of nonprofits have the following structure. They have a governing board up here. The governing board hires the executive director as the lead staff person or lead player operationally. And then that person becomes responsible for managing the operational activities of anyone else who's doing the work of the organization. So I don't know if that perfectly fits or not. I'm open to your comments or not, but it looked to me when I looked at the document like some of the things we were racing ahead to try to define some of the things that I thought we didn't have to focus on quite yet. I mean, it might be we think we want a marketing director, but it seemed to me that was a second hill to take or a second bridge to cross, that the first one is to set up the org structure itself with officers, with, if there's a membership fee, and so on, and to get it the status and get it organized and running, and then talk about your first tasks, which might include getting the executive director and so on, whatever. And I was saying your
Okay,
comments.
I have a quick question. So then you're saying figure out the structure as in like, okay, this is how players are going to be organized, this is how members are going to be organized, this is the membership structure, and then say like, this is how our officers are going to be structured, not necessarily what our officers are going to be, just what the positions, what the length of office can be, and then incorporate it, but have somebody in charge that goes, okay, we need this now, we need this officer, and then the board would go, okay, let's create that officer and give them this responsibility. Okay, well, let's create this officer. Is that what you're saying?
Only partially. So, and this is an item we can talk about. The nonprofits I'm used to have more of a bright line dividing people who are the lay leadership, the board of directors or the board of trustees, and usually the people who are the officers of the nonprofit are not paid, or if they are paid, they're paid nominally for attending board meetings, and they aren't necessarily the operational people of the foundation. If you think of a developer, let's just say you have a developer on staff, they're actually being paid, whether it's contractually or as an employee. And I'm saying people like presidents, vice presidents, treasurer, secretary, those people are usually part of the board of the nonprofit, whereas the executive director is usually the first person who is operationally, even if they're not paid, they're it becomes more of their responsibility to run with things, whereas usually board members, what's the word I want? Usually are doing other things. Usually they have full-time jobs. Whereas in a typical nonprofit, and we may start to deviate from that because of the way we're organized and the people and so on, but a typical nonprofit, the executive director is paid, the board members are not paid, and the officers are in the board. So the president of an Eterna Foundation would have as their matching counterpart the executive director of an Eterna Foundation. Now, if you start mixing that, it's possible to do that. It gets a little more complicated. It more has to do with um, what you do, what you do when somebody, you want them to do the stuff you want. So you want to say, okay, I want, like, for example, let me try to take this as a story. How much time is Ome spending on Eterna? Almost full time? I have the impression that's a yes. True? Not true?
I'm not necessarily sure that that's true. I
Okay.
say for certain, but I don't think so.
So
I would have a guess.
So the difference, it seems to me, has to do with accountability. If you say someone is the treasurer of the Eterna Foundation, that's usually you would have in a regular nonprofit, and again, this may be different. You would say, okay, that person has the executive director and a financial staff that takes care of those things for them, and the treasurer guides them. The difference being the board creates policy and direction and mission, and the executive director and the people they either hire or contract with go out and take action. So one of the major things is whether or not you think we can kind of mix those together. I think the document you got in front of you sort of suggests we can, or you want to.
I think some is just terminology. We've been calling the managerial, the operational managers. We had been calling those officers. I think that was the disconnect.
Okay.
Like, for example, executive director, technical, like those positions, we've been calling those officers. So I think that was some of the disconnect there.
Okay.
Clarification. I think. Yes, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen.
I think you're right. I'm gonna look at the document real quick again.
So I'll wrap you. What you're suggesting is to set up the board of directors, but not the manager, the operational managers.
Well, no, not exactly. Think of it as a 1, 2, 3. Step 1 is to set up membership and the organization. Okay? The membership and the organization and that structure should set up step 2, which is the creation of the governing board, and usually the membership and or the governing board, there's 2 ways to do it, but doesn't matter right now, creates the officers. Sometimes it's, hi, we have we set up things in front of you and we have the membership all vote on the officers as well as the board. Okay, so that's step 2. And then step 3 is the board says, okay, we want, we want Broad to be our executive director. And all I'm saying is, forget right now whether the roles come back and forth, merge, or whether they're bright line separate. Not important to me. What is important, I think, is the basic order. And for me, the basic order says, I don't want to be spending a lot of time right now on step 3 yet. It's okay to have a backlog of ideas about step 3, but what I'm saying is I wouldn't focus on trying to decide if there's 4 roles, 3 roles, or 2 roles under step 3, the people who are operationalizing and running the beast. I'm saying let's hammer down and nail down and focus on step 1, get a workable structure, throw it out to people, let them react to it, and then in effect, once we've tied that down, then we move to step 2 and then to step 3. And along the way, we can pick up ideas. Parking lot, we don't have to throw away good ideas, but it's a question of where we focus our time. My 2 cents.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I agree.
So I got a quick question. So the membership and organization part, I just want to clarify. So so that's saying, okay, we're going to clarify who core members are. Then we're going to say this is what our board of directors is going to be, and kind of what I said earlier about this is the step where we hammer out the framework of how the organization is going to work and how the officers will work, and then we would incorporate at that point, and then set up a governing board, and then they would create officers as needed for step 2, or would we figure out step 2 before we incorporated?
Well, let's clarify.
Go ahead.
Step,
I mean,
just make sure you're distinguishing between officers and operational managers. Officers is things like president, vice president, treasurer, that kind of thing, not the executive director.
Correct. So
there's only one executive director, right?
Almost always only one.
Okay, I was just wondering if there was one for each different like director had like an executive. It just for a second I thought I heard it sound like that. So I just wanted to clarify. All right, cool.
So usually, Jen, you were asking about sort of the difference between step 1 and step 2. It's not as pure as I've laid it out, because in step 1, if you say, okay, this is the membership, and you then write up bylaws, which are essentially the rules for how the membership interacts with each other. How do you call a meeting? And can does the organization communicate in every language or only in English? And do you have to be a paid member to vote? And all those things become our rules. Okay, and we do that before we incorporate. When you incorporate in the United States with a particular state to become a nonprofit corporation that can accept donations that are tax deductible. You then have to file with IRS, but whatever state you incorporate in will ask you for your bylaws and rules, right? In effect, the state wants to know, well, what are you, and what are the rules? How do you play? And we'll want to know. So all I'm saying is it's just it's a 3-step process, but we'll be driving each of the next steps as we go forward. We'll be thinking about, in the same way, when I'm saying, oh, if you have to pay $10, well, I'm already thinking about one of the bylaws that says you must be a paid in full, up-to-date member to vote as part of the Eterna Foundation toward who will be the board members, let's say. That's just a hypothetical rule that'll happen in step 2 that I'm thinking about in step 1. But I need to resolve step 1 first before I can have a governing board. I have to have kind of rules of engagement that say, this is what we're going to agree to do.
And we would, I think when we would incorporate, we'd assign the initial governing board, and then let them run forth and create the officers that they need.
Well, no, the officers usually are defined as part of the bylaws too.
Okay.
Usually, it's
right.
it's very common to just say, there's a president, a vice president, a treasurer, and a secretary, whatever. And a lot of those will be required to sign the incorporation too. Yeah, go ahead.
I think I haven't clarified the officers versus operational managers. So what I mean by the officers is, thinking about officers is the people like the president, the secretary, the treasurer. I understand that those would be created with when the governing board is set up. So I guess the governing board would then create the operational managers then for the different segments. Because this kind of goes back, I guess, to what LC6 was saying, and you were saying earlier, that we have directors of everything, but those should just be operational managers.
Well, I don't know how many we'll have. It seems to me that's a second step project to then say, okay, we want to gear up. What does the operation look like this year? And it might be that the Eterna Foundation differs from year to year, that some years it needs 3 people on staff and some years it needs, 1 person on staff. And in one year it has a marketing director and one year it doesn't. I don't know. I mean, those are kind of details that we could hash out as we go forward and see how these things go. And you can always kind of change things. But if you sort of think of places you worked, the whole organization usually rolls up to a CEO. The CEO, the chief executive officer in a business, is the same as the executive director in a nonprofit. So.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure I got it now. I'm just going to run through it once more with you just to make sure I got it clear. We changed this little note. Okay. So step 1, we figure out what our laws and rules are, and then when we set up, we would then first for step 2 identify who our governing board is going to be, and then we would also figure out who our initial officers are going to be on that governing board, and then we would incorporate. We would have an executive director position, which I guess we would create at that point and assign somebody, and that person would provide guidance on what operational managers we would set up, such as manager of finance, manager of research, the technical director.
Yeah, everything until then. I just want to, this is only a quibble because what you said, 99% I'm in agreement with. The only thing is,
okay.
Consider the following. What if you said, the executive director said, we don't need a chief financial officer this year. Instead, we've agreed to pay, $500 to the Stanford Finance Department, and they're going to do the accounting for us on our behalf, and they'll do any payroll to any people we need, or they'll pay contractors, and we'll pay them $500 for that. And I'm using that as an example, not saying that's a good or bad decision for the foundation, but the quibble is, rather than saying, I need this position, chief financial officer, which we might have, we might not, it's for the executive director to sort of say, well, okay, we need a way to hire resources, people or contractors, and we need a way to pay bills, and we need a way to take money in. How is that going to work? And their answer might be to have a CFO, so that's kosher, that's good. But the answer might be, oh, we're paying a contractor, or we're paying Stanford or somebody else to do it for us, and we don't need the person. And what I'm saying is, we don't have to decide that right this instant in terms of the process. And I'm just saying, therefore, the only quibble is not to assume that part of their job is to figure out which operational managers to have. Their job is actually to recommend how we proceed operationally, and then people or contracting are among the choices they could recommend to the board.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I think we're saying the same thing. I was just saying, I was giving the manager of finance and those as an example of what they would figure out.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that really helps lay it out in concrete steps, so we're not, because there was so much. It was like a fire hose. There's just like so much to take on. And now that I see a path to break it up into manageable steps, we can center our efforts on things correctly. So it sounds like we need to kind of regroup how we're setting some stuff up. But initially, sounds like we are at the right step of setting a questionnaire out to the community to gauge interest on this. And then based on that, we can build our bylaws and rules based on some of the questions that we ask. Let's go over that questionnaire real quick.
Is that something you've pinned somewhere, or you're just showing it for the first time?
That's pinned as well.
Just make sure we're on the same page.
Sorry,
it's called
go ahead.
Survey Questions. Oh, at least just posted it again.
Okay.
And Slack. I can throw it into the chat.
Why does it keep updating Zoom? Now, right? Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the middle of down. I'm going to try to stop that.
Yeah, it's not doing it to me.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, is it in the chat or what?
Yeah.
I got it. I think I got it. Survey questions. How many years have you been a member? How active do you see? What portion of your time? Oh.
This is kind of to get some biographic information.
Yeah, it's okay. That's, I actually don't think we need to wait for it, to be honest. I think it's a good thing to do. I would just separate them in our mind as multiple tracks leading to the same thing, which is, let's pretend we didn't take this survey at all. I bet we could still set things up pretty well without the survey information. Okay, now that's an elitist, egotistical point of view for 30 seconds. But then let's put on a second track the survey and say the survey is a way of getting the pulse of people who are currently involved in Eterna. And if there are things that come in from the survey that aren't reflected already in what my egotistical first track says we've already crafted, then that's a way of blending that stuff in. But I actually believe I wouldn't wait. I think we should get going with a draft proposal, and I almost think people are so put on by, they're over surveyed, we're over bothered by ads and calls, and nowadays anytime you interact with a business, they say, oh, would you stay for 2 seconds for a survey and this and that. I almost think it'd be desirable to say to people, we're probably going to have a draft of what things might look like for you to react to soon as well. And so it would be a little more active and a little less passive. Instead of saying to people, go fill out this stuff, I think what I would say to people is, we're doing this 1, 2, 3 steps. Step 1 is setting up an organization. And right now, we've self-assembled and decided here's the people who are involved in step 1, and here's the approximate timeline. And step 1 does include this survey. And the survey either does or does not include a draft of where we think we're going to end up with in step 1. I don't have a strong opinion either way, whether you give it to them now or whether you just do what you got there, which looks good. And then I would also say, and the path ahead, in very much like the progression in Eterna, and say, and step 2 will be this, and step 3 will be that. And part of our goal will be to keep you informed, and we might touch base with you again. And to the extent that you become a founding member and a paying member of the Eterna Foundation, you will be involved with more of the decision making in step 2. And if you choose not to, that's fine too. Something like that. I don't know. Yeah? No? What do you think?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm actually updating the survey with a blurb.
If they're kind enough to communicate with them, if they're kind enough to spend the time to fill out the form on SurveyMonkey, we want to take the opportunity to open up those communication channels with them.
Okay. Sorry for the silence. Just typing this up real quick. First person to the phone.
Thank you for taking the notes and doing the real-time updates, Jen.
Yeah, no problem. Just want to get this done right. Yeah.
Have other people been involved? Just curiosity as well in this initial pass?
Board has been really
Boris,
active.
okay.
Ben, Beekeep,
Okay.
Ben,
So,
Ben.
okay, I'm not asking for all their names. The answer is yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I wasn't as clear. Sorry. My apology, but that's fine.
Okay. What do you think of this blurb I just added? We have split the setup of the organization into 3 steps. First step is to lay out the bylaws and rules for the running of it. For running it. The first step includes performing the survey, and we include sending out the survey, and we will have a draft copy of the bylaws ready soon for additional review.
Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, we can massage it a little bit, but that kind of but the gist of that flows with what you're saying.
It needs a colon after 3 steps, and we're not
into say multiple steps.
All right, and then maybe do bullet points under it and just do with a 1, 2, 3. You know, step 1 is, create the organization, including membership and and rules or something like that. Most people won't know what bylaws are. I'm trying to, but if you say we're talking about what membership is, most people understand the word membership, right? Sometimes when you join things, membership costs, sometimes it doesn't, but at least. Yeah, and you won't have to say step 1 for, if you just say these are the steps.
All right.
And then one other, I quibble, sorry, you'll find that to a fault. Instead of saying we have split, let's just say we're undertaking. Because as I said, they're going to flow into each other. And all we're just saying is we're focusing, we're organizing.
We're undertaking.
Something like that. All right. Yeah. The rules for membership in the organization. And then step 2 is creating.
From my notes, determine who is, and so determine who's on the governing board and set it up, and then they will determine who the operation managers are after incorporation.
I'd say create an initial governing board and incorporate. Yeah, something like that. And then number 3 is
remember, operational area managers will be determined.
I thought that was step 3.
That's step 3, Jen. What you're doing, just cut and paste it. Don't erase it. Control Z. It's all good. Don't erase it.
Control Z is your friend.
Yeah, Control X. Just cut and paste it to 3. Yeah, and don't write in passive voice. I know.
Yeah, right? That's something that one of my old bosses had.
I know when you
really hard.
All right. So in step 2, I would add some commas instead of just an and. Create initial governing board, comma, engage executive director. I purposely didn't say hire. because I'm allowing us the option that that might be a volunteer, and incorporate as nonprofit. Okay? And then 3 is executive director. Now, don't change what you got there. Just go in front of it under number 3. Executive director recommends operational setup, including operational managers, contractors, whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Okay. I like it. I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Nice. And so the first step includes setting up a survey. We'll have a draft copy of bylaws ready soon for your additional review. We appreciate your time.
And tell people who this team is. Okay, here's the complicated thing. When you start setting up an organization, let me do it the other way around. I've been with Eterna a lot of years. Sometimes I never know who decides things or what's happening. And not always, but sometimes it's a source of frustration. So what we want to do is we want to be very transparent, very smooth with the people we're potentially seeing as our membership. Think of it as a next phase where you're saying to people, if you want to be more than just a casual player here, and we should be proud of our authorship or our participation. If we've got, Boris and who'd you say, B and whatever. Oh, just, you say, here's the team currently working on it. And if you'd like to be a part of the team, we can use more workers, please contact Jen. And Jen will pop you into the group. We can use more help. This is not a little cabal here in secret, right? It's just the opposite. We're happy to have more worker bees. Something like that.
Yeah. I think before we send this out, we should create a email for the Eterna Foundation, do a Gmail, kind of like what we did for EternaCon. We actually have like a single EternaCon email address now. So we can set up that email address to have a point of contact for people.
I think that's a great idea.
Eventually, I'll get us having Eterna game emails. Eventually. Sometime.
Yeah. That's
all right.
So the more we behave like an organization that people can react to, participate in, understand what's going on, then it starts to feed on itself, right? So, yeah.
I'm going to make, for step 1, I'll just put it down there. I'm going to suggest an alternative.
Please.
What do you think of a space between, I don't know, I feel like.
Organizational regulations. Yep, that's right. And org like structure. It's the like org structure too.
Sorry.
I mean, they feed on each other.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, what do you mean by organizational structure?
Well, for example, let's say that let's say that I'm in Britain. It might be that a nonprofit in the United States doesn't help me for deductions on my taxes in the United Kingdom. Okay? So first of all, one thing the structure is if you say it is a nonprofit corporation incorporated in the state of California, hypothetically, that defines and that defines the rules of the game for people. It lets it both do things and not do certain things. That's different potentially than it's a multi-country organization incorporated in Japan, China, the EU, and the United States, or something like that. So, and again, I'm not trying to say which is right or wrong or where we're going to go. I'm just saying that's part of the answer to your question, I think, if I'm answering it correctly, which is, what do I mean by what is the structure? A corporation, for example, can be sued, but its individual directors are not personally liable for the actions of the corporation, unless they've shown gross negligence or something like that. So there's some advantages to having a corporation do things for you. It has, it has its, and the reverse is true. It can sue people. If you say, oh, this drug company ran away with our invention, and that this switched RNA molecule that they promised to pay us money on, an Eterna Foundation can go to court and sue the drug company and say they promised to pay us, $1 million and these royalties, and they didn't pay us anything. They think we're just a bunch of flakes. Okay, so anyway, I'm just making this all up. This is all BS. But on one hand, I mean, the example is BS. But the idea of a corporation, the idea of Eterna actually having the status of a corporation is part of the structure. Am I answering your question? Yeah, thumbs up.
Yep,
okay,
perfect.
good.
Sorry, I've been kind of silent. I'm trying to set up the Eterna Foundation email real quick. There we go. So I'm thinking Eterna Foundation, no space, @gmail.com. You both are cool with
Try
that.
it. Try. It's a good start. Try it. We'll end up using filters to push things to a list. Is what I would suggest.
Well, it looks like I created it. I'm using my personal email as a recovery email.
That's fine.
And I have everything in a password manager, so I can share things with you guys if you need to.
So here's your first financial impact statement or budget. Think of this. If we set up a membership fee, if there's 500 people who join Eterna Foundation at $10, it's $5,000. You said you were looking for money to pay someone.
Oh yeah, if we use that. That could be a little nest egg to get going.
Yeah, and we don't want to start taking money yet. Again, some of these things are going to feed on each other. So you can't. The Eterna Foundation can't have a bank account until it incorporates, but we might want to have somebody set up something, if we trust someone enough to set up a place where they're collecting money and they don't just run away with it. That's a risk, but you could say, okay, the people who have paid Jen $10, they get to vote on the initial rules or something like that. That's possible too. So how are we doing on time? I'm watching because I've actually had a really long day.
Oh yeah.
And
So
can we limit this to another few minutes? I can go a little longer. It's not like I'm tight, but I had a really long week at work, and my wife hasn't seen me very much this weekend because I also had other responsibilities between feeding the homeless this morning and synagogue yesterday that I was hoping to spend some of this evening with her too.
Totally understand.
Do we need to try? What more do we need to accomplish tonight?
So
Next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to do that email. I'll do that in a second. Okay, so the only thing.
Human beings can't really multitask, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. The only thing I really wanted to do after real quick was just run through this questionnaire and see if there was any glaring things that were missed or needed to be tweaked, and then I'll have FP6 put this into a Google Doc or a Google questionnaire, and then we'll submit it to the community. I just wanted to get your opinion on the questionnaire, see if there's anything that we missed that would be essential for helping us with step one.
Well, I actually think I wouldn't send it out yet, to be honest. I think the questionnaire. Let's say that charging $10 per person is a terrible idea for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, in a perfect world, we'd want the survey to say, if the Eterna Foundation cost $10 to join, would you consider joining? And for sure, I want to say maybe, depends on what it would do, or no way, I can't afford that, or what, maybe that's a question we'd want on the survey, which right now we wouldn't ask people because we're not that far along. So here's my question. Rather than looking at the detailed question on the survey, what I would ask the question is this, which is, how does the data from the questions we've currently posed, how does it help us get to our end goals of step one? And if the answer is it supports them well, then it's great, send it out. And if the answer is we're not sure yet, or it's nice to have, then I might wait a little while to see if there's other things we want to wrap into there. So I'm more ambivalent on the survey itself. But to me, it's more a means to the end.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So we need to sit down and more determine what our structure is more, and then if there's anything that we notice that we want answered from the community, or we want to kind of gauge things, then we could send out the questionnaire once we're happy that we have the organizational structure more figured out. I think that's what I'm getting, and that sounds like a great idea.
Should we spend the next meeting actually saying, what we're going to do is hammer out on a whiteboard the actual structure, that it'll be, there's a tier for academic institutions, and there's a tier for businesses who, or there isn't a tier for businesses or whatever, and there's a tier for paid members, and so on, and start hammering those kind of things out. That's my suggestion.
That sounds like a great idea. For then, out of that next meeting, we can have all the stuff. Then we can kind of put it together. Have another meeting to determine, to kind of go over the just the results of that. Hammer out this questionnaire, and then get an agreement and send it out. Kind of planning ahead, a couple meetings.
For what it's worth, the original idea for this questionnaire was just to get an initial gauge from the community to make sure that this was something that people even wanted at all.
What if they don't? What if they don't want it and we still think it's needed? I'm just, I'm not
necessarily saying if whether it's necessarily good or bad. The original idea of it was to say, hey, let's put this out there to make sure that people actually want us to go in this direction at all.
What if they don't, though? Too bad right now. And for 30 seconds discussion, right now I'm slightly skeptical. I mean, how many of these things do you get? I get surveys all the time, and I always feel like they're not really asking me the right questions, sort of. So imagine I sent you a survey, John, and it said, I'm planning to start this new service, and it's going to let you manage your money Would you like to be part of it? Wouldn't you say, how much does it cost? How sweet is it? You know, I mean, I'm not telling you enough to really know if you should care or give a damn about it. And part of what I'm saying right now is, why would a player on Eterna care? Now, if we write up something that says, well, we've got this structure, and if you'd like more control over this game and the science that you've been playing, you know, here's kind of what we have in mind, and then we say, do you think this is a good direction or not? I think you kind of give people more of a template to react to, and I think that you're likely to get a more interesting set of ideas back from people than simply, sure, I think you guys should keep doing it. That's great. Okay, so what? You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
I do agree with that. I just wanted to raise that just because.
Yeah.
Just to throw it out there that it was broached.
No, I mean, it makes sense. And as I say, I think the idea of communicating into the community is very important. We've been very bad about it over all of our years, and it's each of our responsibilities. And if we're going to behave differently, then I think people will be pleased and shocked at the same time. And so we want to, and what happens is, if you don't supply information, there's a basic rule: people make it up. Our brains are terrific organisms to try to construct stories where there's not enough data. So that it's better for us to give them data to react to, and ideas to react to, and they'll be more engaged, and they'll probably be more supportive too. Or, and this is equally helpful, think of science. If they say, look, you give us this fully fleshed idea and it's a piece of junk, I hate it, here's all the bad things about it, you know, I don't know who you guys are. I'd rather they told us that now, before A, you spend a lot of time, and B, we go off in a direction that, you know, the community doesn't really want, or whatever. And then that, I think, ties to what you're saying about the value of the survey.
And I think that ties into what you're saying too about it's not ready to be sent out yet. Like, because based on everything I'm hearing, it would actually be really beneficial if we had a link to like a draft version and said a final one will come out later. That'll be more effective.
Yes, I agree with that.
All right. So I think we're at a stopping point. Let you get to your wife. Thank you for your help. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for being tolerant and waiting this long for me to hop on board. You know, it's like, it's been a long run looking for the, you know, the job hunting takes, you know that, Jen. You just got a new job too, didn't you?
I have an offer. I haven't accepted it yet. It's at Microsoft again. I didn't even have to go in for an interview. They just said, hey, come work for us.
Back we go. All right. Well, good luck with that. I know it's complicated to figure things out. So. Yeah,
I don't know. I think I need more. I'm trying to move to being a test engineer. And there's a few things I'm missing, and this will allow me to hammer down some more testing technologies and get more experience in. And they want me to help fix some of their testers that they're having a problem. There's some weird problems that they're not sure what's going on. They want me to help fix those and do some analysis work based on my stuff I did for Eterna.
It's nice. It's nice to be wanted and have your skills respected. So good luck with that. John, have you restarted your next semester, or are you in intersession, or where are you now?
I finish. I go back in 2 weeks.
Outstanding. Okay. Good luck with it. One other item, guys, which is I'm not feeling like something about the way the Slack meeting. Are we putting out a formal meeting notice, or what? Are we just throwing it out in the channel and assuming that I'm going to keep up with the feed on Slack, or what?
Yeah, I've just been sending out to channel all the updates, but if there was a better way
okay, good. Glad you asked. There is a better way, which is either you or me. Do you use Google Calendar? I do.
I do.
Yes.
All right. So here's what you do. You put an event in your Google Calendar and you invite us based on our email addresses as attendees. And then you put in the location of the meeting as the Zoom link. And then we get these nice reminders on our regular calendar that says,
Ah.
hey, doofus Leonard, wake up, you've got a meeting coming. And that'll help. It would help me, and I don't know if it'll help you guys too, but it certainly would help me a little.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for that advice. This is kind of new to me, trying to do all this with multiple people.
You want me to stay on board while you try it? It's very intuitive, but you just create it.
I don't. When do we want the next meeting to be? I guess that's something.
Good question.
I know that you need to get going. We can hammer this out in Slack. Just comment,
Fine.
and we can plan the next. Because I don't want to take any more of your time. So.
Yeah, Sunday night at this time is an okay time for me. It's not great, but I also don't have great times. I also have synagogue board meetings, and I play racquetball, and so right now you've hit a slot that works. So you might want to just, if it were me, I'd lather, rinse, and repeat.
All right. So yeah, I think so. LP6, you and me seem to be okay at 5:00 p.m. I'll send that out to everybody who's been active, and then if those people have issues, I'll hear them screaming, and then we can reassess.
The issue people will ultimately have is right now, if we're going to be a global organization, is think about if we have any people who either are not in North America, how they participate. You know, you might want to put out a very short, just link this. Well, Slack sort of does that, doesn't it? Or does Slack give a feed to say the doc's been updated that you pinned, or does it not? Or you might want to put something at all channel and say, I've updated the doc, we met, and, and so, because right now we're scheduling at a time that might be convenient for people in North America, but if I'm in Australia or I'm in Denmark or the UK, I'm being partially screened out, and you might want to think about what participation. If I was Eli Fisker in Copenhagen, how do I want to participate? And it could be that that we might want to do an early morning meeting sometimes to let him participate, or he might say, I'm perfectly willing to have you guys deal with that. I don't want to be involved, but whatever. My last random thoughts for the evening. Thanks, guys. It's been fun. Okay?
Yep. Same here.
Yeah, take care. Good night.
You too. Bye. Good night. Good night.
Good night.